Hey, Eastridge. Thank you for joining us for this congregational update video. This is Tom, Megan, and Tanya. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves and let them know who you are and what you do for the church?
My name is Megan Colkind, and I have been serving as the board chair here at Eastridge for the past year, a little over a year now.
And I am Tanya Gajewski, and I am the church moderator, and I've been that for a little over a year,
A little over a year, yeah. And so one of the things that we wanted to do is this is just going to be kind of a conversation between the senior pastor, the board chair, and the church moderator about what's been going on, how we've been doing as a church. We wanted to update you as members of the congregation and let you know where we've been, where we are, and where we are going. And so, Megan, the last time we had a congregational meeting was November of 2019, which was about 7 years ago.
Yeah, it's hard to remember
it's
that far back.
hard to remember that far back. And so what has happened since we last met corporately as a congregation for a business meeting?
So there's been a little thing called COVID floating around, and that has really changed a lot of what's happened here, but we've also been able to maintain a lot. We finished phase 2, so the building is up, it's operational, it's beautiful and functional.
Yeah, and if you don't know what phase 2 is, phase 2 was an expansion project that we've been working on for a few years. It added around 4,000 square feet to the building, and it includes the new kids ministries, bathrooms, classrooms, and an additional lobby space. So if you haven't been here yet, the building looks entirely different. It also included a lot of renovations in the current building as well.
Correct. We then ended up being forced to close in March due to COVID, but we were able to very quickly shift gears and offer our services online, which kept all of us connected to the church without physically being here. During that time also, we had to change what we were doing financially a bit to keep up with the technology needs that online services were requiring. We were able to apply for and were given the PPE grants available to businesses, but we were able to continue to operate as normal, if you will.
As normal as we could. We shifted a lot around. We had a big staff meeting, and we had a really big board meeting of what are the priorities, what do we stop, what do we start, and out of those March meetings, we were able to position ourselves through the rest of the year, in a better position. And our bank worked with us, as they worked with many other businesses throughout the city, to try to get us prepared for what we thought was a couple months of closure. And it ended up being 13 Sundays of being fully closed, and then we reopened in the middle of June for physical services, but we kept the online going, and we will keep the online going for probably forever for that. So then we did a couple fun things outside as well.
We were forced to miss Easter last year because of COVID, and so when we were allowed to safely reopen, we hosted Easter outdoors.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Which was a really nice thing to bring back Easter when we weren't able to physically be here during Easter. So
that was in September. Yep.
We celebrated it a little late, but we were able to manage to pull it off. We also hosted one of the
coldest service on record.
Very cold, blustery Christmas Eve services outdoors.
That Christmas Eve series of services made the news all the way down in Rochester for local crazy church hold services outside when it's -5.
Because we're Duluthians.
Because we're Duluthians, that's right. So
that's what we do.
Yeah, and then last year, 2020, was all basically about adapting, moving, not ever doing anything the same thing twice. And so that was basically what we did, and we were able, I think, to pull it off, hopefully in an effective manner. At the 2019 business meeting, we also talked about my sabbatical that was supposed to take place last year. So Tanya, do you want to, and Megan, do you want to kind of give an update as to what's going on with that?
Yeah, so Pastor Tom was supposed to take a sabbatical, and that obviously didn't happen because everything was closed. So that's been postponed. So it was voted on in 2019.
Yeah.
And we're just going to see, hopefully.
We're hoping for 2022.
Yeah.
What year is
It's
this?
21 now.
2020.
It's
Yeah.
2021. We're hoping for next year, 2022.
Right.
But time will tell. So it's still
We're
there.
planning, we're planning like that's
for
going to
it.
be the case. And then hopefully next summer, I'll be able
Everything
to
will be
take that.
open.
Yeah, everything will be reopened. Yeah. And that's kind of what got, me into some trouble too with, I was working like the sabbatical was coming, and then when the sabbatical didn't happen and we continued to work, so I ended up in the hospital in November with stress and insomnia-induced seizures, which I'm working on to not ever have happen again. So the staff really helped out and pulled together to, to operate without me for
We
a
have
couple
forced
months.
Tom to take some time off.
Yeah. And so that's happening now. So 2021 is, I've been taking more Sundays off. I'm not preaching this weekend, but by the time you see that, it'll be last weekend. And so you'll be seeing less of me in the pulpit, but hopefully we'll get more and more speakers in the rotation as well, as from Emily to Carrie to Lindsay to Justin, and there'll be some more forthcoming as well. So how did we end up, on the budget that we passed in 2019? By the time 2020 was done, if we're updating the church as a congregation, like how did we do budgetarily, if that's a word?
We did well. We hit it.
Yep.
We met our budget marks.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, it is, considering all of the things that could have gone wrong there and all of the things that went wrong at various other businesses. We did it.
Yeah, and that is a testimony to the people of the church
Absolutely.
continuing to give even when they're not here. And so, in fact, now the accountant was telling me that we see more donations during the week than we do on Sundays, because people give on Mondays and Tuesdays, and they give kind of just randomly throughout the week, and it's just such a blessing to be able to do that. In terms of outreach, we actually grew through the pandemic, which is kind of nuts. When we started the online services, we just set up a camera and hope for the best, and that's what we did for a few months. And then some of our volunteers did some great work. Greg, who's operating the cameras now, has set us up to do a ton more than we did. And so on any given Sunday, with both physical and digital, we are larger than we were in 2019, which is not the case in a lot of churches in Duluth, but also around the country. We are seeing something pretty cool happen here. And if you watched online, you probably saw that we had Shannon take over as our worship leader was that August? Yeah, it was in August, and she has done some really, really cool things. And so that's kind of how we ended up for the year. And so how are we operating in 2021 when we did not meet as a church in 2020, Megan?
We were continuing, like Pastor Tom said, to grow as far as our outreach, but being able to hit budget and being able to have contributions from the congregation has allowed us to offer things in different ways. Mm-hmm. So we're able to grow that online ministry, which really was non-existent prior to 2020.
A lot of our efforts turned towards the online ministry, but when we weren't able to meet as a church last year, how are we operating with a budget, and how are the board members doing?
So we as a board have decided to stick with this current, for 2021 we were not able to meet with all of you, and that is typically a very big discussion that we have, presenting you with a new budget, keeping safety in mind, we have chose as a board to continue to operate under the 2020 budget.
For this year, yeah.
For this year. So some line items may get moved around and changed, but as far as the overall budget, that's going to stay the same from 2020 to 2021. That being said, typically in November, we meet and we
That's
ask,
the hope.
we hope, and we ask for new board members to be voted in. Because that's not happening, the board has graciously offered their services to continue through the end of this year, so that hopefully this upcoming November, we can kind of go back to what a normal business meeting would look like and having new board members brought in. But for now, we're all gonna just stick it out and ride out the storm, and hopefully it's over quickly.
Yeah,
That's where we are.
That's where we are.
That's where
yeah.
we're at. We're all still here.
And so, I mean, why did the board decide to postpone until this November?
So we were not comfortable asking, or I guess trying to pass a budget with input from the congregation when there are people that haven't been here in over a year. So we're just gonna keep the budget the same as 2020, and then we'll postpone it until hopefully this November, when people can come in and you can look over the budget and the line items and see it up on the screen and ask questions. Just none of us were really comfortable just kind of passing our own budget by ourselves, I guess.
Yeah, and so we're going to have the budget on the screen now that we are currently operating under, and we'll have our media person put that in. And if you ever want a copy of what we're doing, you can always get a copy of that and how your funds are spent and used in that manner. You know, the current status of all of our ministries is in a really healthy place. Kids Ridge is growing each week on Sundays. Our small group ministry is growing and really starting to kick off again. We had just had 23 women at our Friday morning Bible study, and now we're going to have at least 18 to 20 on the Thursday evening women's Bible study, which is pretty cool. The men's Bible study continues to thrive and kind of continue to be the fellowship for the men there. Yoga is back, and that's been a really cool outreach as well. The Secret Forest Play School didn't stop. They stopped for like 2 weeks, but they just kept going, and they're humming right along as well. It's been a fruitful year, except for the big, gatherings, which we're starting to have happen again. A couple weeks ago was Easter. We had around 450 people show up over 5 services, and we had a couple hundred online. It was huge, and just calling around town to other friends of mine, that was not the norm. And so what we saw here was a really cool thing. And so, kind of back to in person, Megan, what are we going to see as people get vaccinated? We're starting to see more people start to come back in.
We are. We know just the trend of March last year to here we are mid-April. We see more and more faces, more and more familiar faces, many unfamiliar faces, which is a blessing as well. But we know that the congregation is eager to come back in as normal status quo. And so we are continuing with our safety precautions. We are continuing to ask that everyone coming in mask up while they're in the services. But like Pastor Tom said, we're working on our outreach and trying to provide smaller settings. We have all 3 of our services operating now, so you have more opportunity to come in on a Sunday. But we want you here.
Right.
And that is kind of, we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, if you will. And so hopefully that comes quicker. But know that we're here, and we want to see you in person, in the flesh. So hook up with us, find us, come.
Yeah. And it's been, kind of a crazy year in terms of outreach and growth. We've we baptized a whole bunch of people back in November and then December. We've got a baptism this weekend coming up as well. So us as a congregation, we're continuing to make heaven more crowded, and it's a really cool thing. So the reason we're doing this is just to kind of check in and have you check in with us. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment on whatever platform this is posted in. Shoot an email to office@eccduluth.com. And if you have any questions about what's going on or where we're heading. But I think the biggest thing is just for us as the kind of the leaders of the board and the leaders of the staff and the church, just thank you.
Absolutely.
It's been the biblical term has been a heck of a year.
Yes.
And,
yes, it has.
And so thank you to all of our volunteers that are here now doing the sound and the computer and that did all that. We're going to continue to invest in that and make it better each week because we see that being a real growth point to us. So there's still some building changes that are happening right now out in the lobby that you can't see. And so things that are coming, things that are moving. But we can't do that without your generosity and without your continued funding. So how can people give? And what's the easiest or best way?
The easiest way right now, the most COVID-friendly way, is to give online. You can go to give.eccduluth.com. You can schedule a one-time donation. You can schedule recurring donations. You can still do it the good old-fashioned way, showing up on Sunday, and we have silver mailing boxes, if you will, throughout the church that you can drop your donations off into. But like Pastor Tom said, we can't do any of this here without your support, and it's evident. We met our 2020 budget,
and we're meeting the 2021,
and we're continuing to meet it by operating under that budget this year. So that support is helpful. It's how we can reach all of you, and it's how we can continue to try to make heaven crowded.
Donnie, do you have anything to add?
Nothing. Just thank you.
Yeah. So we just wanted to give you an update, short, sweet. If you have any questions, office@eccduluth.com. Thank you for your generosity, your continued support. Thank you for putting up with us for a year and figuring everything out on Sundays where the internet didn't work, on Sundays when the cameras didn't work, on Sundays when I didn't work. We really just appreciate you being here and continue to be a part of this ministry and this congregation. So we hope to see you back soon. And if you have any plans this Sunday, make them here. Sundays at 8:30, 9:45, and 11. Thank you.
Thank
God
you.
bless.